What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Her Hoop Stats podcast. Tyler DeLuca and Cindy Brunson here. It's always stuff going on in the WNBA, Cindy. There's never a day. Obviously, we are in the midst of this WNBA Finals series, and we are going to touch on Game 3 and kind of give our thoughts looking ahead to that. But since our last episode here, as we upload every weekday here on the Her Hoop Stats Network, we've had a couple comments about the CBA, naturally, as just has become the norm. As we dwindle down towards that October 31st deadline. And today, we're talking about the comments that came from someone I think, generally speaking, the public has kind of been waiting to see where the NBA commissioner stood on everything going on within the WNBA CBA. Because for better or for worse, the stakeholder that is the NBA and is the NBA owners is a massive, massive player here in the entire grand scheme of what the CBA negotiations are going to be looking like, Cindy. And so I'll kind of slob it over to you generally first, and we can potentially dive in a little bit deeper with Adam Silver's comments. But as you read them, take me through it. What were your thoughts on it, and like where you kind of felt like the NBA commissioner was standing within all this?
Well, I really appreciated that Adam Silver understood the business aspect of this, right? That you can't have your star player in Nafisa Collier and your commissioner and Kathy Engelbert at odds. That's a bad look. The optics are terrible. And he tried to step in and mediate that. What I found interesting was he didn't fully endorse Kathy Engelbert. He
Mm-hmm.
said fences need to be mended, which means he wants his commissioner in Kathy Engelbert to roll up her sleeves and figure this out because ultimately he doesn't want to give the players the pull to remove her, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a concession I'm quite sure he doesn't want to make since he
Mm-hmm.
handpicked Kathy Engelbert to lead this. She's been doing it for 7 years now. But I did find it very interesting that he said, yes, a deal is going to get done. That is priority one, which all fans want to hear. We don't want to see a lockout. We don't want to see a stoppage, especially with two new teams coming on board for season number 30 next year. But he did say that there is work that needs to be done, fences that need to be mended when it comes to the leadership and Kathy Engelbert and the players in the league.
Yeah, that's where I'm with you step in that, in the sense of it was a strong statement in the sense of we're gonna get this done. But who was going to be involved in getting this done was not very strong. There was never a quote that we got where it was like Kathy is going to lead us and
Mm-hmm.
allow us to make this negotiation happen, and we are going to have WNBA basketball next summer. There was no incredibly strong kind of push in that way when it comes to the quote. Again, there was strong pushes in the sense of we're going to make this happen, but the who of it is what I think has kind of interested me most from these quotes, because it just never felt like outside of just saying we're going to make it happen. The kind of strong will of the quotes wasn't really there for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's um kind of an indictment, frankly, on where we stand just from a relationship perspective, right? With Kathy and Nafisa, and then it goes deeper than that because I have yet to see a WNBA player, at least publicly, be like, "No, we're not behind Nafisa." It's now grown into
Right.
this larger movement of sorts for the players to say, "Hey, he speaks for me." Like this is like where we're at when it comes to all of this. And I thought that was incredibly interesting to not have Adam Silver directly say, Kathy is going to help us and make this happen. There was a whole lot of wheeze. And to me,
Mhm.
that gives off that the NBA is ready to get involved. We'll see if that's where it goes and how fast that happens, but that's kind of the more the nature it felt like to me, where it was like as a whole, the NBA and WNBA will solve this, as opposed to we trust Kathy Engelbert to try and kind of mend these fences. Is that where you're at with it too?
A little bit, and I would go even a little farther into the fact that I thought a door might be opening for some sort of special liaison role
Mm,
that would include a former WNBA player. You know, a
mm,
lot of us that have been on the sidelines of this game for a long time have been championing for a former player and
yeah.
especially a woman of color to be in that role as commissioner. So maybe there's an assistant commissioner role or some sort of special advisory role to the commissioner held by a former player, somebody like Swing Cash or Lisa Leslie. You know, I know Nneka Ogwumike is still playing, but her leadership in the WNBA PA has just been outstanding. She would be another fantastic candidate. Uh, so that the players know that they have a voice in
Mhm.
that room because of the 4.5 minute diatribe by Nafisa Collier that was so beautifully spelled out. It was a, you got to get us in the room and
Mhm.
you got to be transparent. And that can be mediated by having a special advisory role filled by a former player.
Yeah, no, I like that idea a lot because I think the biggest thing ultimately that's missing here, and I think has been such a cause for the divide in communication, if you will, is that exactly, and that's transparency. And we've heard about
Hmm.
whether it be about the books or whatever, what like
Yeah.
multitudes of things where there just has not been transparency
Yeah,
for the
because the
players
players
from
are
the
like,
league.
we know the revenue is up. We know the
Hmm.
ratings are up. We know ticket sales are up. We see all of the metrics based on fannies in the seats and every arena we go to. And yet the WNBA pushes back and says, no, we're really not making money. We're
Hmm.
still really treading water here. And it's like, well, wait a minute, that math ain't mathing. So
Hmm.
show us the numbers. And then
Hmm.
what I take particular offense from Kathy Engelbert is the fact that she dismisses the fact that these WNBA players can't handle what a profit and loss statement looks like.
Hmm.
That, it just, the business seems too big for their minds to wrap around. Please. I cannot with that line of argument because every player in the league is an independent businesswoman. They
Hmm.
have their own brands. They have, they come out of college with NIL deals. They know what business looks like and
Hmm.
they have their own tax people. They understand it. I think better than any NBA player that ever steps into that league.
Hmm.
So give the players credit, give them their due, and give them a seat at the table with an eye on the books.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. Where it's like when you think about how, but if you were even if you like look further the lens out from just like compared to the NBA, if you look at essentially any league in the world, not many players are all coming in with college degrees. Not every
Mhm.
player is all coming in. Obviously, you have like athletes that are like pretty much every
Tyler,
individual athlete
not
is their
just
own brand.
college degrees, one per person. A
Mhm.
lot of these individuals have multiple
Sure,
degrees coming out of
sure,
college,
yeah,
master's degrees, doctorates, all of the things. These are the tippy top tier of what you would want in a business atmosphere.
hmm,
So, yeah, I just, that just absolutely grinds my gears when
hmm,
Kathy intimates that, the players that don't understand the business. That's
yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of them started their own league, like in terms of like like I don't like in terms of like a league that is built for transparency and built
Mhm.
for
And
dialogue.
you
There
you
is none
mentioned
better in the
Unrivaled, right?
WNBA. Hmm.
The other league, the 5-on-5 Athletes Unlimited that I participate in,
Yeah,
is player led. It's
yeah,
completely player led and player driven.
right.
So for Kathy to sit on top of the mountain as commissioner and say, no, the players just don't understand, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I think there was kind of one other thing from Adam Silver's quotes that stuck out to me specifically, and that's the idea here that it's unfortunate that this dialogue is happening now, and in the way that he said, like during the WNBA Finals, and to me that seems like one, if the deadline is a couple weeks away. When else would we be
Mhm.
having this dialogue if not for now? We could have had because it didn't feel productive in the summer, like earlier in
No.
the summer, like around All Star
And the
Weekend when we had
conversations
Kathy
were being
Engelbert.
had in the summer.
Yeah,
Kelsey
and
Plum
it
was saying negotiations are terrible. Satu Sabali was speaking out. The
mhm,
conversations have been taking place all summer long. Now we're
mhm,
just to the nitty gritty. And as women have been forced to do in all sports, not just the WNBA, if you don't raise a ruckus, people don't pay attention.
mhm,
And so right out of the playbook of getting stuff done, Nafisa Collier, in her 4.5 minute soliloquy, said everything that is wrong and is
mhm,
upsetting the players and laid it out and said, okay, ball is in your court. Now you deal with it
yeah,
because we are not going to go through this process without the support of our fans and our internal leadership. So
mhm,
we're being transparent. We are on top of the mountain with our megaphone screaming about what is wrong and what has to be fixed.
yeah,
And now it is up to the WNBA to step up and do right by the product. We don't have a league without these players.
mhm,
They are the product. And now, thanks to the last couple of years of excitement and enthusiasm, we're getting the eyeballs that all of the players have deserved since year one in this league. We got to do right by the product. And I
Mhm.
think that ultimately is the message. And if Adam Silver is uncomfortable with the timing, too bad, boo boo. Too bad.
Yeah, that's it certainly reads as someone who yeah, I bet the league would love for this conversation to slow down a little bit, like,
Hmm.
because the momentum is not on
Hmm.
their side one bit
No.
right now. So I fully believe that they would feel that this timing is unfortunate because there's not a good time for them to have this conversation, and so like there really would not be a good time at all, period, for them to have this little momentum going against them. But certainly also not when the WNBA is in the conversation generally with the games. Like they would love to push this into a December or a January when there's not
Mm.
the WNBA specifically being played, but that's not
But
their
you don't
choice.
have time to do that. You've
Right,
got 2 expansion teams coming on board in
right.
Portland and Toronto. So everything has to be situated and sorted pretty expeditiously
Mhm,
just to accommodate for the fact that we're gonna have not 1, but 2 expansion drafts.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's a position again where the players certainly have all momentum. I don't think that the league, whether for it be Kathy or to me, I don't see how they're doing themselves any favors with any of the like whether it be the press conference from Kathy or now these quotes from
Listen.
Adam Silver. There hasn't been much done from a league perspective to win them any favor or try and
Mm,
slow down the player momentum one bit. Even from like a strategic, even if I don't agree with the league and I'm on the player side, even like
right,
strategically speaking, there has not been anything that has been done well, frankly, from the league shareholder perspective of this to slow
mhm.
down any of this momentum. It just hasn't happened.
I'm sure that PR classes are being taught across the country and are using Kathy Engelbert as an example of what not to do.
Mm,
This is PR misstep number 9. Like, when
at
you
least.
introduce Coach of the Year, Natalie Nakase, and can't say her name
Oh my
right,
goodness. Yeah.
come on. Your
Yeah.
credibility is hanging on by a fingernail.
Mhm.
I just I really want the players to get what they deserve in these negotiations. I want them to be able to take care of the players that came before them with a
Mm,
pension plan like the NBA has in place for
mhm,
its retired players after 10 years of service. There are things that can get done. And for Kathy, with less than zero credibility coming to the table as the mouthpiece in this, I just think that there's so much work to be done on that end from her side representing the owners. And that's the only piece missing in all of this for me. Where is Joe Lacob? Where,
mm,
where are the big, powerful, flexing owners in this
mhm.
league? Lacob, I was there opening night for the
Yeah.
regular season for Golden State. He guaranteed a championship in 5 years.
Mhm,
All right. All right, sir. How do you feel about these negotiations?
mhm.
Like, what do you think about the commissioner? Because if the owners listen to their players and their management teams and say, we can't go forward with this, that's when Adam Silver really gets put into a spot of maybe we have to pivot away from Engelbert.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. We've heard from just about every other, shareholder within all this.
Mhm.
We've heard from
Yep,
the league, we've heard from the players, the fans have
yep,
certainly made their voices heard as well.
for sure.
It's really the owners that have yet to have any kind of strong sentiment. I think it'll be interesting, especially assuming that we do eventually kinda get that kinda curtain pulled back on where the ownership stands across this. There's a
Yep.
pretty clear divide to me in WNBA ownership versus NBA owners that also own
Mhm.
the WNBA teams versus just WNBA owners, and like they are
Right.
separate from the NBA franchises. And I'd be very interested in knowing potentially the different stances, or if there are different stances, if there's kind of like the two kind of groups within that. I would be very
Mhm.
interested in knowing, just generally speaking, where that stands. Obviously, we've seen so much of the expansion be awarded to NBA cities and in that
Right.
way, and to NBA ownerships and things of that nature. I'd be very interested in where that line is drawn, if there is one, and that's assuming
Yeah.
that there is a line between those two different types of ownership groups. But
I
I
gotta
would
say, Connecticut, probably not happy with the current
that's what
regime.
I'm kind of getting at here, where I'm like, I feel like even if you're like Atlanta has an ownership group that isn't tied to the NBA team
Right.
in that
So
way,
does
and
Seattle.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. There's several of these teams, and I can't imagine whether it's just seeing the expansion franchises only go to NBA owners and seeing that like
Mhm.
pot of shareholders grow and the power grow within that. Or
Right.
even just the treatment of Connecticut, where it's like, how do we know that's not gonna be us one day
Yes,
that is
100%.
seeing that?
Like, you have an offer of way beyond expectation of a buy-in fee
Mm,
that is just poo-pooed from the jump. Like, no
mhm,
discussion. The offer isn't even taken to the WNBA Board of Governors. Like, what are we doing? Like,
yeah,
are all of a sudden that money's no good? Come
right.
on.
Right. Yeah. So I'd be very interested in knowing again where the ownership stood and if there is a difference between kind of the two separate groups of NBA versus non-NBA ownership groups
Mhm,
within that. But certainly the kind of shareholder group that we have yet to hear from that obviously have so much stake and so much power and such an influence on where these negotiations could go and what road we take to trying to get these finalized. Because
mhm.
obviously we want more WNBA basketball. Like, we don't
Yes.
we don't want to have a lockout. We don't want any of that. But
No.
um, goodness, it's certainly not in a good place in terms of momentum to making that happen in a quick and timely manner at this rate because it just feels like, frankly, no matter what Adam Silver says in terms of we're going to get this done,
Mhm.
no indication of this of anything that has happened in the past week, really even since the Visa Collier's exit interview.
No, it's
Nothing,
just been
nothing
she
since then.
said,
It's
she
just been
said.
worse and worse since
Yep,
then in terms of
yep.
my hopes of this actually getting done in a timely manner.
Yeah, when
So
Nafisa banged their upcoming meeting, I'm like,
mhm,
"Uh-oh,
yeah,
this is,"
I
and
just
I don't blame Fee at all. Like,
yeah.
I would have done the same thing, like,
Yeah.
because Kathy basically called her a liar.
Mhm.
So, I'm just if somebody did that to me, you're dead to me too. Like, I
Yeah.
totally get where Nafisa Collier is coming from in that.
Yeah. So I frankly, I don't have the answer in terms of where do we go from here. With it, I
Transparency is where we
yeah,
go.
I think that's the
Transparency.
first step. It has to be, and where does transparency
Kathy
lead
said
us?
herself she has to do better.
Mhm.
She laid that out.
Mhm.
Now we have to see it.
Yep.
Words
I
and actions matter.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Well, we're certainly gonna have plenty more about the CBA negotiations. I mean, this is we are a long ways from being done, and with the rate that this news and these quotes have been coming out, I mean, goodness, it's felt like every day we've had some type of new,
Head on a swivel,
genuinely
Tyler. Head on a
impactful,
swivel.
genuinely impactful statement everywhere. There's no days off in the WNBA, and especially
Yeah.
not women's basketball as a whole. Obviously, NCAA season coming up and everything too. There's gonna be
Mhm.
so much going on during this
Yeah.
time, but we got to enjoy these WNBA finals while we have them, because goodness, who knows what comes next in the W. And Game 3 is tomorrow when
Mhm.
we're recording this. And obviously, Phoenix not where you want to be in the series. You want to try and at least go split one of those first two games when you're the
Mhm.
lower seed and you're going on the road. And Vegas certainly, especially in Game 2, did what they needed to do. If you're from Phoenix, maybe that game one, you're hoping you could take that one with
Mhm.
the game that some of the Aces starters were at. And just as we kind of pivot to preview this, just for a little bit here, Cindy, from a Phoenix perspective, going into Game 3, obviously that X factor is going to be rocking. It is
Mhm.
going to be a massive home court advantage in that way. I fully expect that. And we know that this Phoenix team has been comfortable being the underdog, being the team that is battling back. You saw them they lost game one in both of their first two series, and they're
Mhm.
still here. For you, from a Phoenix perspective, what changes? What are you hoping to see from the Mercury to try and take game 3 here?
I'm waiting to see any sort of adjustment from
Mm,
Nate Tibbetts and the approach to the game. This is a team that has lived by the 3 and died by the 3
mhm,
in this WNBA final series. The guard play between these two teams is being exponentially won handily by
mm,
the aces. And that's the starters in Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray, and the bench guards of Jewel
mhm,
Lloyd and Dana Evans. They are eating against whatever Phoenix is throwing at them. And I think that's been critical. I think Phoenix will absolutely benefit from the buoyancy that the X Factor provides. I have lived in Arizona since 2013. I'm a multi year season ticket holder here in the Valley. And that crowd literally can help a team win
yeah,
games. I've seen it night in and night out. And then your bench players always play better when they are sleeping in their own bed.
mhm,
My biggest concern heading into game 3 for Phoenix is the health of Sammy Whitcomb. She went down
mm,
with that knee in game 1. She was scoreless in game 2. She is the automatic 3-point bucket that Nate relies on, that energizer bunny off the bench. And she also plays underrated defense. She
Mm,
gets into passing lanes. She's got a high IQ, and we just didn't see that in game 2. So her health moving forward is a big question mark. Also, the health of Satu Sabali. She went down
mm,
on that ankle at the end of game 2. So, if the extra day of rest can help Phoenix get right physically, I think that's an advantage. I think the X Factor will do all they can to get Phoenix across the finish line. The biggest problem that the Mercury face in game 3 is and always will be the four-time MVP Asia Wilson. They just
sure.
don't have an answer for Asia.
Yeah.
Asia is getting to do whatever she wants to do night in and night out. And all I hear every time I watch the games is Gino Ariema in my head going, well, I have Diana Taurasi and they don't. I have Maya Moore and they
Mhm,
don't. I have Brianna Stewart and they don't. And Becky Hammond can say, I have Asia Wilson and they don't.
mhm,
Because unlike Indiana, who pushed the Aces to 5 games, Aaliyah Boston is a force.
mhm,
And she made Asia work on both ends. And there's just not a post player that's
yeah.
doing that for Phoenix. Now, it's a handful to try to contain AT, but the double team that's coming with the weak side guard slapping that ball away and creating
Mm,
turnover is just genius by the Aces. And like I said, I'm still waiting for Phoenix to make an adjustment. I do think with the couple games in Phoenix, the Mercury should get one.
yeah. That's where I'm at. I would be shocked, frankly, if this is a sweep. I would be shocked. And to kind of piggyback on a couple of your points there, the point on AT I think is so interesting. Because it's it's there's a couple factors and it's a couple things that you mentioned there. The 3-point shooting has not been there for Phoenix.
Mhm.
And like whether it be Sammy Whitcomb, as you mentioned, Dwana Bonner obviously has not been at her best with her 3-point shooting. And we talked about for years when Liz Thomas was in Connecticut, like please get her some shooters, like please, like just space the floor for her and allow her just to have room to operate. And now they're here, they're on the
Mhm.
roster, but the shots just aren't falling. And there's a kind of a multitude of reasons that can be as to why, but ultimately the results have been the same. They aren't falling in this series. And
Mhm.
that is incredibly problematic. And it allows, kind of to your point there about the guards, Vegas in a lot of ways has given into and almost strategized for and using the gravity of Alyssa Thomas.
Mhm.
And in so many ways, and we've seen it this season, we've seen it over Alyssa Thomas' entire career. The gravity that Alyssa Thomas can bring to a game and force a defense to crash down into and be able to kick out and find those open shooters or find and whatever it may be and keep the offense rolling has
Mhm.
been what has made her so dominant as a playmaker is the gravity that she has. The Aces have almost said, "Okay, we'll meet you there," and have done such a good job of like game planning and almost giving into that and saying, "Yeah, we'll meet you there." And like, go again, as you mentioned, the steals. Chelsea Gray's like rate of like swipe down steals.
Mhm.
I, I've never seen a player be so successful so consistently like with that type of steal. It's
Listen,
incredible.
we got looking at Akoa Makani, a
Mhm,
rookie,
mhm,
but a rookie, and licking night in and night out. This is what Chelsea Gray was built for. And
mhm,
you can tell when you look up and down that Las Vegas roster, this is a team that has been tested.
mhm,
Pushed to 3 games against Seattle with a very different style of play, right? They had to match all of that length from Ezzy Magbalore and Malonga and Ogumake. It was just length upon length upon length, and they
mhm,
handled it. They figured it out. They got it done. And then what better team to play who loves to run the pick and roll in Phoenix than Indiana, who
yeah,
can pick and roll you to death with Kelsey
mhm,
Mitchell, Odyssey Sims, and Aaliyah Boston. So if there was any sort of preparation that needed to happen for Las Vegas, they absolutely got it in
mhm,
taking care of business, even though it went to game 5 and a overtime and all of the drama and hand wringing and all of that. But
mhm,
they're ready for this test from Phoenix. And the Mercury, to this point, are not playing the way they played against New York or
mhm,
Minnesota, and that's physical. They
mm,
haven't been able to play physical basketball in these WNBA finals so far. And it's funny because we heard every single coach except one complain about the officiating.
mm.
Nate Tibbetts was real quiet. We know why, because
Yeah.
he wants Alyssa Thomas to play as physical as possible because that really seems to get the engine rolling, right? She's
Mhm.
got that nickname for a reason. And for her to be able to bully ball her way into the paint to kick out to the shooters is huge. I also want to spotlight the excellent defense from Jewel Lloyd. She
Mm.
may not be producing at her all star caliber level from the shooting perspective, but her defense has been top tier, and she is really clogging things up for that beautiful spread the floor offense that Phoenix wants to run.
Yeah, no, I've been incredibly impressed, whether it be the offensive rebounding from Jewel Lloyd, the defense, like you
Mhm.
mentioned. I think that was frankly part of my worry. And like dating back to like kind of before the big win streak from Vegas, and you look back to the early season struggles, and that was kind of my
Mhm.
worry. It was like, okay, if Jewel Lloyd isn't scoring,
Yeah.
what is being produced? Like what else? What other impact is being felt? And that impact has arrived, especially here in the playoffs, where
Mhm.
you have seen multiple games where it's a big rebound, it's a big defensive play where she's just there. Like I've been so incredibly impressed with Jewel in that sense, and in a lot of ways, Dana Evans in the same way. And
Mhm.
I can't shake the feeling though that to your point, the Indiana series just absolutely prepared Vegas for this in a
Yep.
way that in such an odd way because one, Aaliyah Boston, the physicality and the size that and just the
Mhm.
defensive ability that she possesses. I mean, she's incredible.
Mhm.
There's nothing that can match that. And as good of as a defender that Alyssa Thomas is, as physical as Alyssa Thomas can be, she's missing the size that Aaliyah
Right.
Boston has. And
Yep.
so Asia Wilson, I think Aaliyah Boston is the toughest matchup that she has as a team that can put one defender on Asia Wilson. Asia
Mhm.
Wilson's still going to get hers, but Aaliyah
Yep.
Boston, I think, is probably the best defender on Asia in the entire WNBA today. Then you have on the perimeter, Kelsey Mitchell is the fastest player in the WNBA, bar none. And so as athletic as like a Ka is, right, who
Mhm.
absolutely can blow by you 100%, it's
Yep.
still not the highest degree of that to the way that Kelsey Mitchell was. And we saw Kelsey Mitchell
Mhm.
was very successful, but ultimately the Aces survived. And I think the thing that is most important about what Vegas was able to overcome in that
Mhm.
Indiana series, and the reason why it went 5 to me, is that the Indiana Fever were playing with 0 pressure. It was house
Yeah.
money.
House
They weren't
money.
even supposed to be there.
House money.
And
Yep.
I think that this Phoenix team, frankly, you look at a player like Alyssa Thomas who hasn't been able to get over that final hump and has kinda carried the weight of, like, past playoff pushes that have been unsuccessful, and you look at this is a team that the Phoenix Mercury as an organization have invested so much into this roster, draft picks,
Mhm.
player capital. You look at
Yep.
all of it has been invested into this season. This is a team in Phoenix that has pressure, that has to
Mhm.
go and win, and Vegas did what they had to do at home and kept that pressure on as high as they possibly could by taking a 2-0 lead. So for
Mhm.
me, even in that way, Indiana just playing out there and playing physical in the way that Indiana can as well, because their perimeter, they had Odyssey Sims out there on defense. That's Lexi
Yep.
Hole, and so on the perimeter. You're feeling
Mhm.
that physicality as well. It's in such an odd way, the unique season that Indiana had and being able to make it as far as they did actually prepared Vegas in a way that if Indiana was healthy, I don't think you get prepared like this. And it's such an
No.
odd like kind of path that we've taken to Vegas becoming the team that they've been able to become, especially when you think all the way, from the story of the season to how they started
Mhm.
to how they look now. But I from a Phoenix perspective, and to kind of circle back and think about what could game three be,
Mhm.
I think you have to kind of take the bet and try and throw doubles at Asia Wilson, understanding who's
That
out there
Jackie
to get in
Young
that
will
path,
go, "Thank you."
and so it's like it becomes like a thing where it's like you have to try and make someone else that's not Asia Wilson beat you. And that is a
Mhm.
terrifying thought and a thought that might just simply absolutely backfire. But at this
Mhm.
point, you have to try something else. And whether it's maybe you're trying to throw Natasha Mack on Asia Wilson a little bit more. Is it, trying to maybe get a Kalani Brown a couple more minutes? Obviously, she's been out of the rotation for a while now, but
Mhm.
you have to try something different. And as you
Yeah.
mentioned, I haven't felt that sense of difference in
Mhm.
game one or game two or those in game adjustments. And I don't know what the answer is for Phoenix. I think this is a relatively bad matchup, generally speaking, for Phoenix.
Mhm.
And I think that the Aces have been able to figure Phoenix out so far. How do you change the equation if you're the Mercury? That's what I'm very interested in. And
I
so,
think that
yeah, go
the
ahead.
other thing that jumps out to me is the veteran leadership that Las Vegas brings to the
Yeah.
table, and that's why Indiana was so pesky, right?
Mm,
Brianna Turner, competed
Yeah.
for a finals in 21 with Phoenix. Shea Petty, same thing. uh, Odyssey Sims, champion at Baylor, a winner over and
Mhm.
over and over again in her career. These are veterans that just were ready to meet the moment. When
Mhm.
I look at Las Vegas, they've got a roster full of been there, done that, and they've
Mhm.
done it together. They've pulled on the
Mhm.
same rope. They know what to expect when they look in the mirror. This is who we are. This is
Mhm.
what we're about. Asia will
Mhm.
pop into the fit walk wearing that white t-shirt. She's
Yep.
ready to grind. And Phoenix, conversely, remember there's only 2 players that were on the roster
Brand new.
last year.
Mhm.
This is a lot of new faces, a lot of new placing on the floor for these players that don't have that been there, done that scar tissue, which I think
Mhm.
is critical to win a WNBA championship. The thing that helped Phoenix get past New York was they were playing with house money, right? Even though
Mhm.
they were the higher seed, nobody thought Phoenix was going to beat New York, but nobody thought that JJ would play small,
Yeah.
that Stewie would be forced to play on one leg eventually, and
Mhm.
that Sabrina wasn't quite right, right?
Mhm.
She had just come back from injury and all of that. It just wasn't firing. And that's
Mhm.
why Sandy Brondello doesn't have a job, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Like it just didn't work when it should have.
Mhm.
And then you get to Minnesota. For me, that series ended in game 2. As soon as Minnesota let Phoenix back into that game when they were up 20 points, mentally, it was over. And I was already going, all right, when did the final start? Because Phoenix is
Mhm.
going to be there. There's no way that Minnesota was going to be able to come back from that. It was just
Mhm.
too devastating of a letdown because Minnesota again was playing with all the pressure and
Yeah.
Phoenix was playing with house money. In this series, when you have a 4-time MVP with an opportunity to seal the deal and
Mhm.
get championship number 3, you no longer are playing with house money when you are the Mercury. You're
Mhm.
dealing with dogs that are chasing a legacy, a dynastic
Mhm.
opportunity here for Las Vegas. And I just don't see the Aces letting that go.
Yeah, and you're talking about an Aces championship that, to me, I mean, obviously, this would be, looking after the fact and everything, but you're talking about a journey that this team has been on that is completely unique to any other championship that they've been able to win, and
Mhm.
I think there's a very strong argument to make if they're able to go and pull this series off, that this
Mhm.
might be the championship that means the most to, like, an A'ja Wilson, who is now, like,
Right.
solidified this GOAT case that has already been
Best
incredibly
player in the
building, but
world.
yeah,
She
like,
is
it's
the best player in the world. She
yeah,
is the face of the WNBA. She
yeah,
is her. I can't think of another player that has her own commercial, like, where people are singing her theme song. I mean, she is her. And I think as long as she is healthy and has any sort of drive inside of her at all, I think this is going to continue to be a long series for the Mercury
yeah,
because that locker room just doesn't have that level of tenacity at a variety of positions and a
mhm,
level of want to, right? We saw Kia Stokes come off the bench for one play
yeah, locked up,
at the end
sure
of
thing.
game 1 to use her length, and she could have been in her feelings, right?
Mm,
She was benched. It hasn't gone her way this season like she had hoped. And still, Becky felt confident calling on her to do her job. And
mhm,
I don't get the sense that Nate Tibbetts has that
mhm,
same comfort level with his bench.
yeah,
I really credit Hammond for shaking it up, for going to the zone in game 1, for
mhm, mhm,
giving Phoenix, I mean, the Mercury were flummoxed. They did not know what to do with the zone. The beautiful basketball was interrupted and they didn't know how to pivot out of it. So again, I look at the leadership and the want to. We still haven't really seen Cheyenne Parker Tyus either.
mhm,
She's a dog. I mean,
mhm,
2 months removed from giving birth, and she's ready
exactly,
to contribute as well. Like, I think there are still so many options for Vegas that they haven't even been forced to tap yet
mhm.
that could prove beneficial for an Aces title bid.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see if what the pivots can be both for the Aces and how obviously the Mercury can try and respond and try and work their way back into this series. If they can defend
Mhm.
home court, you're right back in this 2-2. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of work to be done in order to try and get there. So I'm excited for it, Cindy. I'm excited I got to talk hoops with you today. I appreciate you
Right
for
back at you.
jumping
Oh,
on.
one
So
one
yeah,
final thought,
yeah,
Tyler. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
Phoenix, even though this is a best of 7, they need to treat this like as a best of 5. Like,
Mm,
they need to go into game 3 as if the series will end
Agreed.
if they don't win game 3. I think it's that critical of a juncture in this series because at that point, if you win game 4, who cares? They're going back to Las Vegas so they can celebrate in front of their fans. Like,
Right.
they've got to win game 3.
Agreed. I'm right there with you. We'll see if they do it. We will see
Yeah.
if they do it, and we'll be back here on the Her Hoop Stats Network to break it down after. So make sure you're tapped in here. Again, we have podcasts coming at your way every weekday. You can find our social medias here on the screen for Tyler and for Cindy. We'll talk soon.